Look, in my line of work, you see things. The worst things imaginable. The brutal, the bizarre, you learn to put it away. You have to. But some files, they don't stay filed. They sit there in the back of your mind, and they haunt you. This is one of those files. A story so chilling, so completely impossible that it shreds every law of physics and reason we think we know. This is the last terrifying ride of Bus 375. So, where does our story begin? Well, it's not on the road. It actually begins at the end. A horrifying, completely inexplicable end discovered days after a city bus and its last few passengers just drove right off the face of the earth. The morning after its final run, the workers at the Beijing depot noticed something was wrong. Bus 375 never checked in. Now, a whole city bus doesn't just disappear, but for 48 excruciating hours, it was gone. No sightings, no radio calls, not a single witness. It had just vanished. Then the call came. A tip about something big, underwater, in the remote Myun Reservoir. And when the recovery cranes dragged that mangled wreck from the murky depths, there was no doubt. It was Bus 375. 100 kilometers. That's how far from its official route the bus was found. Let that sink in. 100 kilometers in a direction it had no business going, to a place it couldn't possibly have reached. And that number, that was just the first crack in the foundation of reality. To understand the sheer horror of what they found inside that wreck, we have to go back to the beginning. You know, every truly terrifying story seems to start in the most ordinary way, right? The calm before the absolute storm. And for the handful of people on Bus 375, it was just another cold November night. Just the last ride home. All right, so picture this. Yuan Mingyuan bus station, Beijing. It's midnight, November 1995. The air is freezing, the streets are empty. The driver and his young female assistant are tired, just ready to get this last route over with. On board, it's a quiet group. A young married couple, a young man, and an elderly woman who gets on a few stops later, settling in near the back. Just a bus, a warm metal box cutting through the silent, dark city. The journey is quiet, almost hypnotic. You've got the rhythmic hum of the engine, the city lights blurring past the windows. Then, miles from the nearest bus stop, the driver slams on the brakes, the bus groaning to a halt in the middle of absolute nowhere. Now, you're not supposed to do this. It's against every rule in the book. But these two figures on the side of the road, they were waving like their lives depended on it. So the driver, probably annoyed but maybe a little concerned, opens the doors with that classic hydraulic hiss. A blast of cold air rushes in, and with it, the nightmare gets on board. It wasn't two people, it was three. Two men, dressed in these impossibly old Qing dynasty robes, step onto the bus. Immediately, a chilling silence just falls over everyone. Their faces were bone white, sharp, and just blank. No emotion, like porcelain masks. And between them, they were holding up a third man, whose head was hanging so low, you couldn't see his face at all. The driver and his assistant just froze. You could feel it, a sudden primal fear. This was wrong. This was deeply, deeply wrong. The air on the bus had turned poisonous with fear. The young couple, you could see they were terrified, practically jumped off at the very next stop. So that left the driver, the assistant, the young man, the old woman, and the three silent, unnerving figures in the back. But the old woman, she was watching, and she was seeing things that no one else dared to look at. She risked a glance back. Their faces hadn't moved, not an inch. They hadn't blinked. She couldn't even see their chests rising and falling. It was like they weren't even breathing. But the real paralyzing horror wasn't what was on their faces. It was what she saw when a gust of wind blew through an open window on the bus. As the bus swayed, that wind lifted the hem of their ancient robes for just a split second. The old woman's heart just stopped. Where their feet, their legs should have been, there was nothing. They were just floating, hovering an inch above the floor of the bus. In that one moment, she knew. She wasn't on a bus. She was on a hearse. Pure survival instinct kicked in. She lunged forward, screaming at the young man in front of her. "You stole my wallet, thief!" The poor kid was stunned, totally denying it. But her act was desperate. It was convincing. She screamed at the driver to stop, to let them off so they could go to the police. The driver, probably just happy to get rid of the chaos, pulled over and threw them out into the freezing night. As the taillights of bus 375 disappeared into that crushing darkness, the angry, confused young man turned on the old woman. She grabbed his arm, her voice shaking but absolutely certain. "You should be thanking me," she whispered, her eyes wide with pure terror. "I just saved your life. Those things on the bus, they are not human." He thought she was insane. I mean, who wouldn't? But the very next day, the news broke. Bus 375 is missing. They both went to the police, and their story was dismissed as just some crazy fantasy. Until 2 days later, when that bus was pulled from the reservoir. The scene that was waiting for investigators wasn't just a crime scene. It was a physical, logical impossibility. The timeline made absolutely no sense. Day 1, the bus is missing. Day 2, a massive search of its entire route turns up nothing. It's like it was just plucked out of thin air. Day 3, it reappears at the bottom of a reservoir, 100 kilometers away. It was a paradox that had law enforcement completely baffled from the get-go. The official attempt to just write this off as a tragic accident, it fell apart instantly against the hard evidence. So fact 1, there was no surveillance footage of the bus ever leaving its route. Fact 2, fuel logs confirmed the bus flat out did not have enough gas to travel 100 kilometers. But fact 3, oh man, fact 3 is what took this from a mystery and launched it straight into a supernatural horror. Investigators opened the fuel tank. It wasn't empty, it was full to the brim of fresh blood. Inside, they found 3 bodies. The driver and his young assistant were identified. The third was an unidentified man. But the medical examiner's report was just chilling. All 3 bodies were in an advanced state of decomposition, as if they'd been dead for weeks, not submerged for 48 hours. The science just didn't work. And the cause of death? Undetermined. No signs of drowning, nothing. The only clue was the look etched onto their faces, a permanent mask of absolute, soul-shattering terror. An impossible location, a fuel tank filled with blood, bodies that decay way too fast. The official accident theory was a joke, a lie. This was something else entirely, a case that would become a legend, whispered about in the dark because no rational explanation could ever fit the facts. And what about the survivors? The young man and the elderly woman who got off. They were changed forever. Their simple bus ride home became the single defining, horrifying moment of their entire lives. Once they were dismissed as crazy, but now their testimony is the only living account of that bus's final cursed hours. So what really happened? The file might be closed, but 3 theories just won't die. 1, demonic hijacking. The old woman's story is the literal truth. The bus was taken over by something not of this world. Its fuel turned to blood, its destination somewhere else. 2, an elaborate murder. A brilliantly planned crime using a ghost story as the perfect cover. But that still doesn't explain the blood, the location, the decomposition. Which brings us to the most chilling theory of all, an official cover-up. That the authorities found something so terrifying, so far beyond our understanding, that they chose to bury the truth rather than admit what really travels our roads in the dark. And this is where the story shifts from a paranormal mystery to a full-blown conspiracy. Because after that initial baffling investigation, every single piece of physical evidence, the blood samples, the autopsy reports, the crime scene photos, was either reported lost or sealed under state security classifications. Gone, never to be seen again. The file wasn't just closed, it was erased. The authorities pushed their clean, sanitized, impossible explanation of an accident. They tried to make the story go away. But the elderly woman, the unlikely hero who stared into that abyss and found the courage to act, she never wavered, not for a second. Until the day she died, she told her story to anyone who would listen. She knew what she saw. She knew she had escaped from a ghost bus, a phantom hearse driving its passengers to some unknown hell. So, the file is closed. The evidence is gone. All that's left is a story that has become one of China's most enduring and terrifying urban legends. But for the driver, his assistant, and that unknown passenger, it was all too real. It leaves all of us staring into the darkness, asking the same question that has haunted this file for decades. What truly happened on the last bus to midnight? And what else is out there, just waiting by the side of the road after the rest of the world has gone to sleep?